Hello and welcome to the Gridiron Portfolio series with the Undroppables, where we treat player values like stock prices, except with way more panic selling and terrible decisions made under the influence. Cheers. This is the third of our four-part series focusing on dynasty wide receiver investment strategies. I'm your host, Lance Gandy. You can find me on X at LG_fantasy. I am with my hilarious, intelligent, gorgeous buddy, Chris Cano. How are you doing today, Chris?
I am doing fantastic. More adjectives, please.
No, that's enough of that. All right, sweet. Let's get this started. So, my first receiver on the board, the white boy with juice, Ricky Pearsall. I have him as a buy. Right now, he's 46th in Dynasty wide receiver rankings on Fantasy Pros. So, yeah, you're like, this Ricky Pearsall guy, he's a white boy. Is he just a little slot receiver, agile, whatever? This guy had a 9.9 RAS score at the combine. That's elite, elite, elite. 42-inch vertical, almost Vince Carter like. So, over the last few years, 49ers have fundamentally changed their offense. So, it used to be basically just Christian McCaffrey centric, and they've moved more to the Brock Purdy world. So 2022, 53% pass. 2023, 54%. 2024, 60% pass. So some of it is obviously because they were losing more games last year. But okay, look at what they've done. We're about to give Brock Purdy a huge contract. They traded Jordan Mason, who was super promising last year, and they've already had multiple trade offers for Brandon Ayuk. Now, who knows if they will trade him or not? There's been a lot of rumors. It would have to happen in the next week or so with his roster bonus coming up. But even if they don't trade him, he's coming off an ACL injury. He was terrible before it anyway, so who knows what you're getting there. So players ranked right now ahead of Pearsall. 29-year-old Deebo Samuel. He was wide receiver 44 last year. He did not help you. He hurt you. 27-year-old Michael Pittman. He was 43 last year. Also hurt you. And he has a below 50% completion QB right now. So some recent trades on Dynasty Daddy right now that I looked up. Pearsall for Marvin Mims and pick 209 this year. Mims is a gadget player. That's all he'll ever be. Pick 209 is nothing remotely close to a first rounder that Pearsall was last year. So Pearsall for 2025 pick 212. That's even worse. Good Lord. So Pearsall for 2025 Pearsall and 2025 pick 209 for Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston is a bust. Just delete your sleeper app if you made that trade. You aren't contending now or ever. Christopher, thoughts?
Not a believer of Quentin. Um, this is probably the one pick you've made that I really don't have any problems with. I think the Niners believe in Ricky. Anybody who can get a shot in the chest and be a starting receiver the next year, it just really seems like a dynasty Disney script for Pearsall. Having him that low is pretty crazy. My only concern is, McCaffrey is the guy, he sucks the air out of the room. How healthy is he when he comes back? You already traded Mason. You don't have Debo. You don't know if Ayuk's going to be there. Is he just going to get more? But Pearsall is clearly a big piece of the puzzle there in San Francisco, at least for the future. So that's a big buy for me.
So, Christian McCaffrey, famously also a white boy. Um,
Last I
so
checked.
I just, I just don't know. So McCaffrey is coming off of Achilles tendonitis in both Achilles. I don't think he'll ever be the player he once was. I don't think they are going away from a Brock Purdy centric offense. pass more offense at this point in time. Um, so I think Pearsall's a screaming buy with how cheap he is right now. Um, okay, but let's go on to your next spicy take.
This might be the most controversial take I have in this entire series, and I know a lot of people are going to scratch their heads. I got Amon-Ra St. Brown as a sell. He's fifth in the fantasy pro rankings. He's a first, second round pick in your dynasty draft and your regular draft. Everybody knows how good this guy is. He's very consistent. This has nothing to do with St. Brown, the player. I think he's still going to be very good. I just think you're not going to ever get the value better for him now because the Lions are still the Lions. A big thing that I think what made them so special and click so much was just how they organically grew with Campbell and that coaching staff and Ben Johnson being a huge part of it. I really don't believe John Morton was the right call here. You look at his history, the best thing he's done in his career was with the Colin Kaepernick Niners about 10, 15 years ago. Was an offensive coordinator 1 year with a pretty bad Jets team. They went 5-11. And the last 2 years is the passing game coordinator for the Broncos, which in the other one, I was very by Bo Nix. At the same time, you're going to give him credit for that. You also got to give him blame for the Russell Wilson disaster that got Nix there in the first place. I just don't really know how that offense is going to go with Wharton. And usually, um, there's a lot of times when you just replace not just one coordinator, but both, and there's a lot of changes in that staff that it's just going to be a rocky start. And there's a lot of mouths to feed in Detroit, maybe more than any other team in football. Jamison Williams is becoming exactly what they hoped to be. He was a top 10 pick. Laporta is still one of the best tight ends of the game. Everybody knows what Gibbs is. Montgomery is a big piece. They're still going to get numbers, and St. Brown is still going to be pretty good, but you're just not going to be able to get basically a star now and a star for the future like you can right now for Ramon. Some dynasty daddy trades I saw for him: McConkey and a high first round pick. When I say high, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And McConkey, are you missing a lot? Giving St. Brown for McConkey and then maybe adding somebody else like McMillan or adding Jainsey or adding something else. I don't know. That seems like it's worth it to me. Or Amon-Ra St. Brown for A-Chain and Odunze. Again, you can get an up-and-coming receiver. Receivers may be the most deepest thing in fantasy football, deepest position. You can get something really good for Amon-Ra St. Brown right now when he's at his zenith.
Hmm.
What do you think about that, Lancey boy?
That was
That's
spicy. My
spicy
lips
enough.
are my lips are burning.
Spicy enough.
Um,
It is hot in
okay,
here.
so
What's it?
a little
What's
bit
your
of
problem with that?
pushback on this. So, first of all, you talked about Johnny Morton, who's the new offensive coordinator, and you talked about his lone offensive coordinator year was the 2017 Jets. 2017 Jets were legendary in how bad they were. Good Lord. They had Josh McCown starting at QB. They had Bilal Powell and the corpse of Matt Forte. They had Robbie Chosen was their leading receiver with Jermaine Curse and Austin Safarian Jenkins. I don't know what else you can do with that squad, but I get that losing Ben Johnson and to a certain extent also Aaron Glenn and some of the other staff uh, could hurt, but I just feel like the nucleus of this team is all still intact to where St. Brown will still be very, very, um, very good for a long time. I mean, he's going to be very, very consistent. He's one of the most consistent performers out there. However, it's a fine line that you're kind of walking um, with how many people they have to feed the ball and how run heavy they are. Last year the odd man out was kind of Laporta. Maybe they decide to bump up the target share for Jameson Williams and Laporta and St. Brown's, instead of wide receiver 3, maybe he's wide receiver 10. Um, I could see that
I
happening.
that's what I'm
So
saying. I could see him falling a couple tiers down. Really, if you're talking about a first tier guy, you're talking about the best player on the team. And if you're looking at the Lions, really you're looking at St. Brown, you're looking at Gibbs. And I'm probably going to take Gibbs out of those two for now and for the future. So I think if you're talking about if you want to trade a tier one guy, get somebody for now, get somebody for future. I think Amon is somebody that you should consider. But I see you got your own spicy take here as well.
I do. I like it
Indian
spicy.
food spicy.
Okay, this may actually be a little more.
Yeah.
I have so I have Malik Neighbors as a sell. Um, so I know you're all gonna call for my head on this one, but listen to me. So Neighbors right now is going ahead of the Sun God, who we just talked about, Puka Nakua, Brian Thomas Jr., Nico Collins. What do those players that I just named have in common? They have a set QB, a decent to very good offensive system that they're in. So Brian Thomas Jr. last year had 3 more touchdowns and more yards last year. He's wide receiver 7 in Dynasty. So you could get Brian Thomas Jr. plus another asset for Neighbors, and Thomas Jr. did better than Neighbors last year. So I know we had a lot of fun for a whole 4 days about the Jameis Winston Neighbors connection. Those days are gone. Reality is now Mr. Extremely Limited, aka Russell Wilson. So I think Neighbors would easily be the best wide receiver in this year's draft, but when is this offense going to be anything but bottom 5? I mean, so at this point next year is a very real chance that they fire the GM and head coach and have no future at QB at this point next year. Because I don't, it's possible they go with Shador at pick 3. I think that's bad team building anyway. But I mean, they've signed 2 veterans already at QB. They may not draft one until, round 3 or something. And I mean, what's the hit rate on that? So now you're looking at a different offensive system with no future at QB. I just see too many routes to this team being horrible for years and Neighbors' talent being wasted. So if you can get something that can be more consistent, I mean, they're going to have times where, you know, they're they're passing for 150 yards in a game. Maybe Neighbors has half of those yards, but that's not doing anything for you. So if you could get Brian Thomas Jr. in an asset or trade Neighbors plus a little something on top for Chase and or Jefferson, do it before you're caught holding this talented receiver in this situation. What you thinking?
Giants are bad, but are they Daniel Jones bad? I don't think so. Really, out of anybody from that rookie class last year, except for Jaden Daniels, I don't know if anybody looked more impressive than Neighbors. 100 yards, 109 catches, 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's missing 2 games. Doing that with Daniel Jones and worse. Um, all these other guys, you're right. They're in a great system. That my only thing is with Malik. He is the system in New York, at least until further notice. I really hope they don't get Shadur because they really need a lot of help. But that is a spicy take, my friend. I don't know if I would get rid of Neighbors. It would take a king's ransom for me to get rid of that guy.
There's some Neighbors truthers out there though, and a lot of them would give a king's ransom, and I would do that in a
I
heartbeat.
mean, like 2 first rounders and Thomas. Like, if somebody's willing to give you
I
the
don't think
farm,
you need that for Thomas.
absolutely.
Thomas outgained him last year, and he will this year probably too with no QB on the Giants. But okay, let's move on to your next player. Who you got for us?
So this is the guy that everybody thought was going to have the season Neighbors had last year, and I have Marvin Harrison Jr. as a hold. He finished 26th in the positional rankings, and he's 14th in Fantasy Pro rankings, which is tier three. So he's still kind of a wide receiver one, wide receiver two. But really, if there's anybody that you're going to target from last year's rookie class, somebody who really didn't hold their weight from where they were picked, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. He was a top three, top four pick in any rookie draft. If you're talking about dynasty draft, he's somebody you're taking in the first, second, first three rounds. But really think about it. If you said a rookie had 57 catches, 822 yards, seven touchdowns, that's a pretty good year. It's a pretty good year for a rookie. He just didn't reach the hype that most people said for Marvin. He just feels like somebody that people are going to try to snag from under you, and he's somebody you really need to hold on to. I said a lot in my sell James Conner in the last video. I really think the Cardinals are switching more to a passing game. They need to utilize the pass more, and they need Harrison Jr. to reach the potential, at least the floor of his potential of where they drafted him. So he's somebody who is in a tier three right now who really this year or the year after that, if he's not a tier one, tier two wide receiver, something went wrong, and you're going to really regret sending him out now. Some daddy trades I saw for him. I saw Saquon Barkley for Harrison Jr. That certainly would get my fingers twitching some type of way. Thinking about getting Saquon after the year he had last year, but is he really going to run for 2,000 yards? Is a reason it's only happened a few times in the NFL. Other trades I've seen like early first round pick, meaning you can kind of punt your pick of Harrison Jr. last year for really a high end first round pick this year, or Jackson Smith Nigba for Harrison Jr. All those I kind of think are okay, but really the ceiling for Marvin just seems so much higher. Really, it's just the beef, whatever is going on between him and Kyler, just gets out of the way. Sky's the limit for this kid. Um, don't don't regret it by selling too early on Marvin.
So I do agree with the hold. He was definitely a letdown in fantasy last year, just
Oh
with him
yeah, for
being
sure.
pushed up so high. But so his rookie year compares with CD Lamb's rookie year, and obviously look at where CD is now. And I'm not saying they're comparable players, but you can have this growth over multiple years. Um, so I agree with the hold, definitely. I do think Kyler has kind of peaked. So they're going to have to use Harrison in more creative ways to get him the ball more. But, some of the only catching 57 passes was on him also. So he's going to need to get better. But I think he can, just like we said with CD. So I think for sure a hold. I mean, some of those trades, you know, I don't know if they
Would you do
capture how much
Saquon for
potential he has.
Harrison? Would you cash Harrison Jr. for Saquon? Or
I'm
would you go ahead
I'm
and
gonna
think twice
I'm
about
gonna
that?
be a wuss and a cop out and say it depends on the team. um, if you need a running back, I could see it happening. I think Saquon could be good for a while on with that offensive line and things like that. But um, Harrison has the potential to be good for 9 years for you. Barkley has,
There's
if you're in your window now, get Barkley. If your window is 2027, 2020, later on, Harrison Jr. is your guy.
not many
All
guys with
right.
that kind of ceiling that Marvin's got. Don't give up on him now.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, that'll wrap this edition of Gridiron Portfolio. If you liked looking at Chris's face for 15 minutes and hearing some spicy wide receiver takes. Hit like, subscribe on the Undroppables YouTube page. The Discord is now free on our Patreon, and it's on fire, guys. So take advantage of what we have to offer there. And hey, if your league mates are slacking, take advantage. Dynasty does not wait for anybody. Later, Gator.